My name is Sigal Adar. I'm the head of the TAU Alumni Organization and the CEO of the Israeli Friend Association. And here with me is Sigalit Ben Chayun, the Executive Director of the TAU Alumni Organization. And we both are welcoming you and wish us all an inspiring evening. Mr. Richard Greene, that is sitting here, thank you for accepting our request to speak before our alumni. Tel Aviv University is the biggest university in Israel with 30,000 students and 180,000 alumni. As an alumni of a large, strong, and internationally known university, we expect each one of them to be active and lead wherever they are. One of the most essential skills to be able to do so is the ability to convey messages. I'm confident your lecture, Mr. Greene, will contribute to your ability to do so, and we sincerely thank you for that. Also, I would like to thank two TAU alumni that helped us to do this evening, Galit Gelstein, that she's sitting here, and Ron Belkin. Where are you, Ron? Ron here. It is Richard Greene representative in Israel. So we are very thanking you for introducing us to Mr. Greene. At the end, Mr. Greene talk, we will have a lottery in which we will draw one name of a lucky participant who will win the privilege to meet Mr. Greene one-on-one. So we hope that you put your name in the lottery. Now today we also celebrate the TAU Alumni Organization 2 years anniversary. And before inviting Mr. Greene to the stage, please enjoy this short movie summarizing our 2 years together. I am honored to invite Mr. Richard Greene, called by the Sunday Times of London the Master of Charisma, to the stage. Mr. Greene is one of the leading communication strategists and public speaking trainers in the world. Over the past 30 years, Richard Greene, a former attorney, has redefined human being's greatest fear, public speaking. He is also the author of The Words That Shock the World, 100 Years of Unforgettable Speeches and Events. Mr. Greene will tell us about the 7 secrets of highly effective speakers, such as Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and others. Please.
Honor, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart, to be here in Israel. And it is, even though I am from Los Angeles and California and the United States, which is now Donald Trump land, or maybe especially because I am, it feels terrific to be back. I have not been here since the year 2000, and it's 17 long years, but I look forward to perhaps coming back on a regular basis and share some things. And I want to thank Ron Belkin, who's been my organizer, who brought me here 17 years ago, and he said, come on back. So let's give a big hand to Ron. Can you please put it back to the recording? Oh, we need it for recording. Great. So, and I want to thank his wife, Aznat, and we are here because of Aznat. This is how things happen. 20 years ago, I gave a seminar for the Israel chapter of KLM Airlines. And there was a student in that workshop that I gave who said, I need you to meet my husband. And this is Aznat, she introduced me to Ron, and Jewish geography, it all happens, right? We're all here together. A hand for Aznat. Galit, who Ron said, I have this person who is going to connect you with everybody and everything, and she has, which is amazing. A big hand for Galit. And then my 2 new friends that I met at breakfast this morning, Sigal and Sigalit. Thank you for making it so simple. I was bar mitzvahed a long time ago. And so I know no Hebrew, and that was keeping the names even simple. Thank you for that. By the way, I have to tell you, 15 years ago, my mother and my daughter, who were born on exactly the same day, June 3rd, but 57 years apart, they actually had a B'nai Mitzvah together. My daughter did not want to get bat mitzvahed when she was 13, and it took me to get her till she was 16, and I said, how about if you do it with Grandma? And so she walks into the kitchen of my mother's home and says, Grandma, I'll get bat mitzvahed if you'll do it with me. And my mother said yes, and they did it together. And that was the last time I saw Ron, who flew all the way from Israel to be at that B'nai Mitzvah in Los Angeles. Anyway, so why am I here? I'm here for three things. One is to help any of you who are afraid of public speaking to be less afraid and more interested in actually doing it, to share the message of your cause, your company, your project, your startup, whatever it is that you want to share with the world, because Israel rocks and we need for you to share whatever it is with the world. People who don't like Israel, I just want you to know, I say, oh, you don't like Israel. They're treating the Palestinians horribly. Oh, I understand. Do you have a cell phone? And they said, of course I have a cell phone. I said, give it to me. Because you wouldn't possibly want to be using any of the technology that was developed by Israelis, would you? Right? So this idea that Israel is this horrible place, which seems to be shared in the United Nations and various other places, I think once people understood what comes out of great universities like this and what comes out of the great minds of the Israeli public, I think it's hopefully will begin to shift, because the world benefits enormously by the brain power that is cultivated in this university. But in order to communicate that message, which sometimes Israel does not do as well as it can in terms of public relations, which is painful, I think, to every Jew and everyone who loves Israel, you have to overcome the fear of getting out and speaking in public. So how many of you are a little afraid of doing that? If I said, okay, come on down right now, and I want you to spend the next 10 minutes talking about your company or your project or whatever, how many of you would be a little nervous? Raise your hand. Okay? So let's find out how much. 0 nervous is you doing a walk on the beach on a Saturday afternoon, or here or in the Maldives or Bora Bora or whatever. That's a 0 in terms of nervousness. 10 is you walk into your dentist's office and he says, how are you? Open your mouth, let me see. You open your mouth, his eyes get very big and he goes, oh my God, right? We have to do an emergency root canal, because otherwise the infection will go to your brain, blah, 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 blah. Unfortunately, I'm so sorry about this, but we ran out of Novocaine just yesterday, okay? So 10, in terms of nervousness and discomfort of you standing up here, would be a root canal without anesthesia, okay? So, okay, raise your hand when I hit your number, okay? So coming up here 20 minutes right now, I may call on you, by the way. And so 0 nervousness, raise your hand. Okay, that's good. That's unusual. That's a very high number, actually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, no, 9, 9. My own organizer is a 9. Okay. 10. Anybody a 10? There's a 10 in the back. You're a 9. You in the very back. You're a 9 or a 10?
Danny's afraid to raise his hand.
10, yeah. 10. How about 11? Any 11s? I've had 11s. Okay. So actually, that's not bad. That's actually quite good. Maybe it's the Israeli bold spirit, right? The second thing, how do you, when you do communicate in public, how effective are you? Now, there are many metrics to judge how effective you are, but the one that I think is the most effective is how engaged is your audience? Back loop when you are a public speaker.
So what I mean by engaged is not looking on their cell phones, not talking to other people, not falling asleep, not wandering with their attention. They're fully engaged like you have them in the palms of your hands, okay? Now, very few speakers can do that. How many of you have gone to conferences, professional conferences, or whatever, where the speaker has almost zero engagement with the audience? Okay, that's not a good thing. I mean, it's a waste of time in many ways. So the art form and the science for a public communicator is to be able to engage the audience in the beginning and hold them all the way through and engage them at a level of a 10, fully engaged from the beginning to the end, okay? So how many of you, so 0 would be, I don't ever engage my audiences. 10 would be, I always engage them completely, fully, okay? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Again, pretty confident audience, okay? So maybe you're all here for the third reason. So the third reason is, how many of you are a little bit curious how this guy named Donald Trump became president of the United States? No. And just to get a pulse of this, we're not going to be very political tonight, because it's really more about the art and science of communication. How many of you are happy that Donald Trump was able to make his way into the White House? Happy that Donald Trump was president. 10. Happy, yeah, we won't do the number. Well, we could, let's do that. Good suggestion. Okay. So it's like Pharrell Williams, you know, the happy song, okay? So that would be 10. You're super happy. I'm happy, Pharrell Williams, right? Then 5 would be so, maybe it's okay, maybe it's terrible, I'm not so sure. 0 is, oh my, okay? So just, where are we? This is curious for me. Okay, so 10, super happy Donald Trump is president of the United States. Okay, it's cool. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Hold on, keep your hands up for 0. I want to know who my friends are in the audience. So I would be a negative 10, okay? But I predicted it. I predicted it for in 2 articles in the Huffington Post. One was an article I wrote in August or September talking about how Donald Trump, this was August or September of 2015, when he just announced, and he was running against 16 Republican senators and congressmen and governors. It's like, there's no way in the world. People were laughing. Who is this guy? And I said, no. We're going to talk about 7 secrets. And one of the secrets is the 4 languages of human communication. And I wrote in this article in the Huffington Post that Donald Trump, if he could only speak one more of those 4 languages, because he spoke 3 of them, he would be very hard to beat and would very likely win the nomination and very possibly also the White House. This was in the August or September of 2015. I'll explain to you how I knew that. The other article I wrote was in like the summer of 2016, and it was entitled Donald Trump, the Rodrigo Duterte of America. How many of you know who Rodrigo Duterte is? Okay, he was the Donald Trump of the Philippines. He's the guy who literally, I swear to you, when a woman from Australia, a missionary, was raped and murdered in his hometown that he was mayor of in the south of the Philippines, he literally said, "Why was I not invited?" And then when they said, "Oh, certainly, Mr. Mayor, you did not mean that," right? Why were you invited to the rape and murder of this woman? He goes, of course I meant that. Have you seen her? She's very beautiful, right? So that actually communicated a lot to me. And because the whole campaign was Hillary trying to somehow cause people to pay attention to what Donald Trump was saying and what, with respect to women and all these other things that was objectionable, and say, okay, you can't vote for him because he's saying and thinking all of these things. And so I wrote the article in the Huffington Post saying, we're missing something very important here. The people of the Philippines overwhelmingly elected Rodrigo Duterte, and I happen to know this very well because I was doing political communication consulting for Rodrigo Duterte's opponent, who was the Hillary Clinton of the Philippines. And this was in January of 2016. And I was there in Manila doing debate preparation for my candidate, who was a senator, a former senator, just like Hillary Clinton, and was a former cabinet officer for the presidents, just like Hillary Clinton was. And was an academic, just like Hillary Clinton was. Well, and he was a man, which made it even easier, should have made it easier for him, right? And we were all laughing at Rodrigo Duterte, saying, let's not even debate prep against him, because when you do debate prep, have everybody stand up, and there were 5 candidates, and you ask questions, everyone has their turn, and you make it seem like a real debate. And we didn't even pay attention to the surrogate, the person who was playing Duterte, because he said he can't possibly win. He's too crazy. He's saying too many crazy things. And then we kept watching his poll numbers stay solid. Solid. Exactly like what was going on with Donald Trump. His poll numbers stayed solid. Donald Trump literally said he could walk into the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot people and his poll numbers would not drop. And he was right. He was right. So I wrote this Huffington Post piece and the White House was interested, and I told the White House, I said, there's 2 things that Rodrigo Duterte and Donald Trump are giving the voters the same way, why we need to be concerned about Donald Trump. One is he is giving, and Duterte was doing that as well, very simple solutions to problems that anyone can understand. We're going to build a wall, we're going to keep Mexicans out, we're going to keep Muslims out, we're going to make America great again. For any of you in PR, that is phenomenal messaging, right? It's everybody in the country could understand that, no matter your level of education. What was Hillary doing? I don't even know. I don't know. I voted for her because she was competent and I knew she would take care of things. But what was the reason to vote for Hillary Clinton other than the fact that she was a woman? I'm with her. Cool. That was her slogan. I'm with her. And his was, make America great again. What would you rather spend your time doing, making America great again or being with her? And the her was not a likable person. Not in public. Not in public. Have any of you met her in private, Hillary? She's lovely. She's far more lovely in person, So that was one thing. The other thing, and this is incredibly important when we look at history, like Adolf Hitler or any demagogue, any totalitarian leader. Glorious promises, and this is what I wrote in the Huffington Post and what I told the White House. I said, anyone who makes glorious promises with supreme confidence is going to overcome rationality. Because people are going to be emotionally invested into that set of promises and that vision. And that is exactly what Donald Trump did. Now, I was screaming on Facebook and on the Huffington Post and everything and said, he can't build a frickin' wall. He's lying to America because he can't build it. Look what's happened. It's not being built. If he wants to pay for it himself, it'll be built. But the United States Congress is not going to allow a wall to be built. And, oh, by the way, Mexico is not going to pay for it. Maybe Israel's going to pay for it, but no one's going to pay for it, right? And he couldn't just repeal and replace Obamacare. So we have a constitutional system where the president can't do those things. And I blame the news media. For any of you who are upset about what happened, I blame the news media for not properly educating people on what civics is. This is how things get done. This is how things don't get done, right? So that's just kind of the political context. Okay, so we're going to explain a little bit about the Donald Trump magic. And I do believe that he will not finish out his term. Okay? But it's really, really, some of you hope so, some of you don't hope so, right? I mean, but it's really, really tricky because he literally, just so you know a little civics, he literally could stand in the middle, right now as president, in the middle of Fifth Avenue, take out a machine gun and do what that guy did to the Congress people in the baseball field, I don't know if you saw that, and shoot down everybody on Fifth Avenue that was walking down Fifth Avenue, and he still could remain president. The only judge and jury that is allowed to judge the President of the United States is the United States Congress. And it's now controlled by Republicans. And unless 67 of the 100 United States senators vote to convict him if he is impeached by the House of Representatives, sorry for all the civics, but just, there's a lot going on here. This is like Watergate times 10. Because then you also have Russia, and you've got all sorts of things, right? But it's highly likely now, as long as Donald Trump's popularity with Republicans in the Congress, in the congressional districts and Senate districts, as long as the Republicans like Donald Trump, the Republican senators and the Republican members of the House of Representatives will not likely vote against Donald Trump, because otherwise they will lose. What's politics all about? It's staying in power. They will lose in their primaries coming up in 2018 and 2020. So we can talk more about that. I mean, I love the politics of this and the law and all of that. But let's talk about the communication, okay? So I wrote a book, a coffee table book, which I would love for Tel Aviv University to teach with, because it's the 20 greatest inspiring speeches of the 20th century. And I put some Jews in there. So as many as I could fit, right? Albert Einstein is there for a speech that he gave in 1945. And then I put Yitzhak Rabin. I also put Anwar Sadat in there. So let's talk about learning communication at a higher level. Let's talk about learning anything. So the essence of mastering anything, whether it's tennis or golf or public speaking, is these 4 steps. And I used to teach tennis for 10 years, and it's really true that the first level of knowledge or mastery is what we call unconscious incompetence. And that's you don't know that you don't know. Okay, does that make sense? So you go in there and you go, oh, I can play golf, and then what happens, right? Or I can ride a bicycle, or I can shift a stick shift car, right? And then what happens the first time you try to do that? It doesn't go well, right? You fall, you stall the car, whatever. Then you go, oh my goodness, I don't know how to do this, right? That's the most important step in knowledge, is that awareness that you don't know something that you might want to know, right? So that's part of what we're doing tonight, is having you learn some things that perhaps you don't know. Then someone shows you how to hit the forehand or how to hit the drive or the putt. how to shift the car with the stick shift. They show you, and then you focus 100% of your attention. Okay, let me try to do this. Let me try to do this, right? And you literally, every single time you hit a golf ball or you hit a tennis ball, you're creating what? You're literally creating new neurological pathways in your brain to lay down a foundation of structure to be able to do that activity. Because there is something called neuroplasticity. How many of you are aware of neuroplasticity? It's a phenomenal thing that we've discovered about neurology in the brain. The brain can always keep growing, always keep growing. And that's why continuing education is so incredibly important. In fact, my mother just gave a TED Talk entitled, at 87, she's now 88, and the TED Talk is called It's Never Too Late. Because, and then ... until it is. Right? It's very poignant. Because at the age of 57, she finished her bachelor's degree. At the age of 73, she was bat mitzvahed. At the age of 75, she got her master's degree in spiritual psychology, and she's still going to school at 88, taking writing classes, right? As long as, use it or lose it, right? That's how the brain works. Okay, so then you keep doing it enough, and pretty soon, if you're tennis, you're Rafael Nadal or Roger Federer, or Novak Djokovic, or Serena Williams, thank you, right? And you don't even have to think about it. It's now autopilot. And that's the same thing with public speaking. Okay, so secrets 1, 2, and 3. These are the 3 ways that Donald Trump and any great speaker creates the engagement that you want when you're speaking about something that you care about. So it's through words, it's through voice tone, it's through body language. So I'm going to surprise you here, probably, maybe not for some of you who may have studied this, but when you are communicating one-on-one or one on a million, there is a certain ratio in terms of how these 3 things make a difference, make an impact, create a first impression, right? So you're up there speaking, and people are listening to your words, they're listening to your tone of voice, they're watching your body language, and they're making decisions, aren't they? When you see someone speak, you're analyzing, do I like this person? Do I not like this person? Do I trust this person? Do I not trust this person? Do I think this person knows what they're saying and they're very smart? Do I think that they're making it up? They're not really that smart. Do I want to do business with him? Do I don't want to do business? Do I want to invest in this person's idea? Do I not? All of those things, right? Do I want to vote for this person? Do I not? All comes down to those 3 things. So here's a question for you. What percentage of the impact that you make on another human being or on many human beings comes from the words that you speak? So 50% or more? 50% or more, 40 to 50, 40 to 50, 30 to 40, 20 to 30, 10 to 20, under 10. Okay, wow, nice variety. Okay, voice tone, 50% or more, 40 to 50, 30 to 40, 20 to 30, 10 to 20, less than 10. Okay, body language, 50% or more. Some of you are over 100%, I'm counting. Okay, 40 to, so university, 40 to 50%, 30 to 40, 20 to 30, 10 to 20, under 10. So, how many of you are a little surprised by that? How many not surprised? Okay, so sometimes Israelis are considered to be very bold and assertive. Have you heard that? You've heard that. I was being nicer. Now, could it very well be that if, when you were speaking, you lowered the volume of your voice, and softened the body language, that alone, even using exactly the same words, that alone would make a difference. Of course it would. That's 93%. This is the difference between Bill Clinton. How many of you ever met Bill Clinton or heard him speak? Right? Very good, right? Very compelling, very engaging. And Al Gore when he was vice president, right? So Clinton would charm everyone and Gore would bore everyone, right? And they had, here's the thing, they had the same speechwriters. So it cannot be that words are all that there is. He's from Tennessee. But now, have you ever heard Gore in the last few years talk about climate change? It's unbelievable. He's almost like Martin Luther King. And I went and I saw him do that years ago, and I turned to the person, I said, where was that guy when he was running for president in 2000? He was always convinced. He was always an environmentalist. He wrote a book on the environment long before he was even vice president. And you know what happened? This is a great lesson. His campaign was so focused on polling, which is a problem. So you can trust the intellectual data, the polling, or you can trust your gut. And sometimes the gut is more powerful than the best polling that exists. Because Bob Shrum, the campaign manager who lost with Al Gore and also lost with John Kerry, he said to Al Gore, you know what? The environment polls at number 8 on the issues that matter to America. And so we want you talking about Social Security and taxes and this stuff that Al Gore was not passionate about. So all we saw was a robot who was talking points based on poll-driven data, as opposed to let him talk about something that he cares about so people could see his humanity and his passion. That's why he lost. You know how many votes he lost by? He lost. The Supreme Court had something to do with that too. But in 2000, do you know how many votes he lost the presidency by in the year 2000, Al Gore? 537. Basically twice the number of people in this room determined the United States presidency because they didn't like Al Gore because he wasn't authentically passionate about things that he cared about when he was on the campaign trail. You meet Al Gore in person and he's, again, very different. You know everyone, don't you? Okay, good. There's another thing. So if you're not interested in politics, tell me if this is true in Israel. It's true. I've taught in 51 countries around the world, and I think it's true everywhere. It's Thursday night, it's Friday night, you're getting ready to go out, big night, you have to go to a party or a play or a movie or dinner, whatever. And sometimes it's the male, sometimes the female, but let's just say for statistics that the female comes out right before you're leaving and says, sweetheart, how does this look? Okay, raise your hand if that's ever happened. Okay? Now, maybe it's the male who says, sweetheart, how does this look? But generally, I have found that it's the female saying that. And generally, I find that the male doesn't really understand this. Okay? And so the typical male response, again, I'm generalizing. The typical male response, it looks great, sweetheart, let's go. Raise your hand if you've ever said that or done that. Okay? And then very often the female says, no, really, how does this look? And so some cognitive dissonance, crazy stuff goes on in the male brain and says, I know she speaks English, or I know she speaks Hebrew. I just said it looks great. And literally the male brain and many people tend not to understand that what was really going on was 7% was saying what? It looks great. And what was 93% saying? The voice was saying, I really don't what? I really don't care, right? And that was 5 times more loud than the words. And if I say, yeah, looks great, let's go. Where's my focus? My focus is that way, not on you. So a helpful hint for tonight, tomorrow night, whatever, to say, and your wife is talking, just totally, this is what Bill Clinton does, focus, and say, and then totally take an extra moment, scan, absorb it in, then take an extra moment and be strategic to say what not to say, but at least you're acknowledging and your voice tone and your body language are going to be connected. That's incredibly important. I did a 2-day course in New York, and I suggested that people listen to their spouses in this way. I call it full body listening, right? And I suggested that they try that at home. And one CEO goes, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. So the next morning he comes in and I go, hey, Mark, how was your evening? And he goes, we had a really good night. So this could be more than public speaking that we're talking about. Okay, so Donald Trump, the words were not sophisticated as Hillary's, right? But they were easy to understand, weren't they? They were really powerful and easy to understand. The voice tone, Hillary, sometimes when she spoke, I called it screeching. People said, oh, you're being sexist. You're just saying that because she's a woman. I said, no. Howard Dean, if you remember Howard Dean, he ran for president, and he was screeching, and it ended his campaign, and that was a man. And the body language, Hillary, her body language when she was speaking was okay, but Donald Trump's was phenomenal. Phenomenal. Because Donald Trump would stand behind a podium, no teleprompter, no notes, and he would just have a conversation with 20,000 people, right? He'd go, and we're going to build a wall, yeah! And then he would engage in actual conversation. And who's going to pay for it? Mexico! I mean, it was all fantasy land. It wasn't true at all, but people loved it. And that body language of having a conversation was very powerful and connecting. And the one thing Hillary Clinton, unlike her husband, did not do was connect. I mean, she's married to, occasionally maybe even spends time with, the greatest connector ever, right? And she wasn't able to do that. Okay, so very quickly, some things. Most important thing to know about words is not to use technical jargon that other people in the audience might not understand. We're all very smart in this room. You've got all these tech ideas, for example, but if I'm sitting in the audience and I don't fully understand every single thing you're saying, I'm going to disengage. And I'm going to feel embarrassed. I'm going to feel shy about it. As opposed to, you can use a term, say, now let me explain what that means and why it's important. Ah, thank you. And hopefully teachers here do the same thing, right? One of the lessons we learned from Donald Trump is if you make your language easy to understand, people will be more likely to pay attention to you. It's very simple. But the most powerful thing about words is the use of stories. The 6 most powerful words you can ever say when you're giving a speech are, let me tell you a story. Stories make the world run. What is the Old Testament? It is a bunch of what? Stories. What is the New Testament? A bunch of stories. What's the Quran? What's the Bhagavad Gita? It's all stories. That's what makes a great speaker, is the ability to tell stories. How many of you have kids? Okay? Did your kids ever say, forget the stories this week? No, what'd they say? Mommy, Daddy, Abba, Ima, tell me a story, please. I promise I'll go to bed. I promise I'll brush my teeth. Just tell me a story. Yes or no? Raise your hand if that's ever happened. How many of you love stories, right? Have you ever watched a movie? The city I live in, we make our living off of telling stories. Hollywood, that's what Hollywood is. It's a storytelling factory. Okay, so voice tone, this is really important, 38%. Okay? Let me just say one thing about that statistic. The the 73855, it's very controversial. And even the professor, a guy named Muharrek at the, Meridian, that's it, I'm sorry. At the University of Pennsylvania, in 1968, he actually went back on what he said. He said, no, this doesn't apply. So, I'm sorry?
He said that he's mortified by the results that he's talking about.
He said he's mortified by the results, but I have to tell you, having taught tens of thousands of people, that those statistics are accurate from my clinical experience.
My clinical experience, they're different. It's 60-40.
60-40 what?
60 for body language, voice, and eye contact, and 40% for words. That's what most researchers do.
Okay, so I would be very happy to have a long conversation with you about that, okay? Because, again, I've been doing this for 30 years in 51 countries, and I've had in every single country, and maybe we can have time to do this, situations where if you change some words, right, you can then viscerally measure and visually measure the impact that that change has on the audience. And then when you change voice tone, it's a huge difference. When you change body language, it's even bigger. So that's, I mean, I'd love, is he still alive, the professor?
I'm not sure, but I can tell.
Okay, well, let's talk. I mean, again, I don't believe everything I read, right? Right. Okay, good, we'll talk. So, and maybe we'll have a chance to demonstrate that. So we both agree that the nonverbals are almost always underplayed by people who are giving speeches. The focus is on the words, the words, the words, the words. Right? And so that's a mistake. So at the very, very least, and we're going to have a long conversation, I can tell. This is great. Very few people know this. So at least I'm giving the caveat, right? The full disclosure. Well, is it because of my words? It's all the words? So hold on. Okay, so voice tone, what makes voice tone really important is that when you are speaking and you have some degrees of variation, that... Okay. Let me give an example. And you be the judge, because this is the first time in 30-something years that someone's challenged me like that, and I love it. So here's an example. Ready? So the greatest speech of the 20th century, according to me in my book, and also most other public speaking coaches and communication people, is the I Have a Dream speech by Martin Luther King. How many of you have ever seen that speech? I mean, it's unbelievable. Especially unbelievable if you understand the history of that, which is that he literally had planned a 7-minute speech, and he went for 16 minutes. He ad-libbed the second half of his speech. Ad-libbed it. Without notes, right? So one of the great parts was he went like this. I'm going to give you two variations. One with very bad body language and voice tone, and one with better, okay? I have a dream that one day this nation will live out the true meaning of its creed, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, little white boys and little white girls, okay? So that's the words. So this is now more or less what he did, as replicated by a middle-aged white Jewish guy, okay? 50-something years. I have a dream! Pause, pause, pause. That one day, pause, punctuation. This nation, pause, punctuation, will live out the true meaning of its creed, that all men are created equal. Is there a difference? Okay. So now if I changed a few words, I have a dream that some men, right? It would make a difference, but it wouldn't, I think, make the kind of difference that the voice tone and the body language.
The only thing I have an opinion about is the numbers.
Okay, good. So welcome back next Monday night for the continuation of these dialogues. Okay, thank you. What's your name?
Michelle.
I have, by the way, your voice tone And your body language in criticizing me was really beautiful. And thank you. Let's give her Okay, any questions or comments on that? So, I'm sorry?
On the numbers. She was burdening.
Yeah, go talk to Donald Trump. He's the deal maker. Yeah, will you travel with me to my next gig? We'll talk. Okay, it's a deal. Are you a teacher?
Yes.
Here?
Also.
Also, okay, good. There we go. Maybe we can co-teach a class. So, yes. Well, and that would go to what? What she's saying is that in the United States, which different kind of elections than here in a parliamentary system, the taller candidate has all but 2 times 1, right? And that the height would relate to what? Body language. People look at someone who's taller and they have different reactions, right, based on that body language. But I suggest that there are other things. If a tall person, for example, was like this, and a shorter person was like this, that could balance out the differences. But the bottom line is the communicator almost always wins as well. Doesn't matter the party, doesn't matter how much money, doesn't matter the economics, it doesn't matter anything. Okay, voice tone. Okay. Incredibly important. Very simple way to do it. How many of you like Adele? Okay? Now, I'm going to teach you how to be Adele. Okay? So here's what Adele does, and to some extent what Donald Trump does very well. Okay? The main thing that you do with your voice is variation, right? Sometimes loud, this is really important. And when something's even more important, you might want to go, this is really important. Could you notice the difference in the room? So what I was telling Hillary's people, and they weren't listening, was that sometimes less is more. Sometimes softer is actually more powerful. And she kept going out and screaming and screeching, right? Because not only was there a lack of overall variation, but she wasn't varying the volume. Sometimes the pace. So there's this, and there's this, and there's this, and there's this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. But most importantly, we are going to repeal and replace the horror called Obamacare. Right? Right? Because he changed the pace, right? Or that's how a person would do it. And then pitch. Adele, right? That song, Someone Like You, and sometimes she went very high, and then sometimes very low, and then back up to high. So these are the 3 metrics. Change your volume, change your speed, and change the pitch, okay? Now, one of the ways to do that, and if you just do one thing from tonight, say, okay, it was interesting, okay, but I want this to be practical for you. I want all of you to actually be much more powerfully effective in everything you communicate. And this is probably the lowest hanging fruit. That expression here? It's probably the easiest thing. And that is to punctuate the most important word or words in every sentence. So when you were in college, okay, did you take a yellow or a blue or a pink marker and you would mark things, say, okay, when I go and I study for the test, now I know what to do? Of course, I never went back, did you? But you felt good marking, highlighting, punctuating those things, right? What great speakers do, notice the difference, what great speakers do, as opposed to what great speakers do. What's the difference? Okay, so what great speakers do, what the truly greatest speakers do. What great speakers do, what the truly greatest speakers do. Which is easier for you to engage with? Yeah, it's massively different, isn't it? What percentage, doctor? Almost doctor. Okay. So Okay. So you have a chance to punctuate by word or punctuate by syllable. So, for example, and they're both effective. I think syllable is even more effective. So if we say, for example, it is absolutely critical that we do this now. You can go, it is absolutely critical that we do this now. I'm punctuating how? By word. But now the word absolutely has 4 what? 4 syllables, which gives me 4 opportunities to vary my volume, my pace, or my pitch, right? And that's what singers do, right? That's what Martin Luther King did, right? Martin Luther King, though, he took 1-syllable words and he turned them into multiple-syllable words. I've been to the mountaintop, and I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but we, as a people, will get to the promised land. If you took pauses and punctuation out of Martin Luther King's speeches, they would still be phenomenal. He was one of the greatest speech writers in the history of the world, on his own. That's what made him great. 10 as a speechwriter, 10 as a speech giver. Okay? That's the combination. Plus, look at his message, right? At the time in history, I mean, it was unbelievable. Okay? So the punctuation, hugely important. So I want you all to do that. It is absolutely critical that we do this now. Ready? 1, 2, 3, with lots of punctuation. It is absolutely critical that we do this now. Okay, you're Israelis. Come on, you're almost Italians. Okay? I want some body language. I want some hands. Ready? 1, 2, 3. It is absolutely critical that we do this now. Okay? Which one felt better, right? Now go back to doing no punctuation or pausing at all. Ready? It is absolutely critical that we do this now. So now the pause, so there's a punctuation and pause combination. So it is, notice that it is absolutely critical that we do this now, as opposed to it is absolutely critical that we do this now. Now, one of the things that really makes the greatest speakers as great as they are is this thing right there. People do not understand the power of the pause. There's a saying in music that God lives between the notes. That empty space is God's space. And when you watch a really great speaker, you're going to notice punctuation and pause, and it's very much like a roller coaster. The more punctuation, it's like you're taking that ride up the roller coaster, and now you get a free ride down. Because without the punctuation, the pause is more difficult. Okay, it's just, you'll start listening to these things, and hopefully some of your better politicians will use them. So the other thing is resonance, the difference between, hi, my name is Richard Greene, or hi, my name is Richard Greene, or hi, my name is Richard Greene. Bond. James Bond. Got it? That's what it is. Actually, I was in the Four Seasons Hotel a week ago today in Beverly Hills, and I'm walking through. I was at the wrong hotel. There was another Four Seasons that I was supposed to go to. There is Morgan Freeman sitting right there, paying attention to nothing, sitting there with, I think his driver was sitting next to him. Huh? Oh, okay. And so I had given Morgan, so he's doing a TV thing on God, right? And I wrote a book called E equals MC squared and the New Definition of God. And it's a children's book because it's the scientific definition of God. I wrote a piece in the Huffington Post entitled God for Atheists. Are any atheists here? Okay, happy to send you the book. Okay, and I had given it to Morgan's, not his driver, but somebody else with him, his PR person, Stan. And so I went up to him, I said, did you ever get my book, E equals MC squared and the New Definition of God, blah, blah. Anyway, we ended up having a long conversation about God, about politics, about tantric sex. I mean, seriously, he's been practicing it for decades. He says it's the greatest thing ever, tantric sex. Morgan Freeman, recommendation. I'm sorry, what? Practicing. Should we go more detail on that? No. And anyway, what? It's a story. He actually said that he and his lady, one of his many ladies, they call it worship. Interesting. Okay, happy to talk about that after the class. So the resonance, the reason we love Morgan Freeman when he narrates films is because the resonance of his voice just makes us feel good, right? So think of resonance, the difference between a violin, a cello, and a bass. They're exactly the same instrument, but the bass has more room for the vibrations of the strings to resonate within, right? Very important. Okay, very important to do that, to get to have gravitas and to have credibility and authority. So who is the guy Bennett? Right? So I was on, what was I on yesterday? Why Not? And was talking about some of your politicians. And Bennett seems like a very, again, I don't understand the politics very well, what's going on here, but from a standpoint, he's have a harder time getting votes because he sounds like a young. He doesn't sound like Morgan Freeman. Right? I'm sorry, what do I say about women? Yes. Great. Well, one of the greatest, if you look on this, you can't see right under where it says secret number 2, you can see an African-American woman. Her name is Barbara Jordan. She had the best voice tone of probably any member of Congress in the history of the United States. And it was because of that voice tone that Richard Nixon, in part, actually was forced to resign because of a speech she gave on the Watergate Committee in 1972, and she delivered it with such power and eloquence and great resonance that everybody in the country stopped and paid attention. But it is harder for a woman to have that kind of effect. But there are women that have that. Diane Sawyer, for example, is a journalist. But again, women have many disadvantages and many in communication and many advantages, right? Voice tone can be a disadvantage, but you can neutralize that by just practicing, just like Adele. I mean, what makes a great singer is they work on their voice. And it's an incredibly important tool of communication. Okay?
Can you change that?
Absolutely. Look what I just did. For example, one of the reasons that people speak in little resonance is because they're stressed, right? They're not breathing properly. So if you, hi, my name is Richard Greene. Hi, my name is Richard Greene. It just takes some practice. Well, let's do it. You want to do it? We'll do it. Ready? Go like this. So 10 is very high, very narrow, very little resonance. So we're going to do 10 like Pee Wee Herman, okay? And then we're going to go all the way down to 1. Ready? 10. Come on, loud. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See? 0, 0. Okay, you can go -1. So stuff that you can practice. There's lots of ways to practice, and I had mentioned to Sigal and Sigalit that I was actually. Oh, did I say that correct? Okay, I love that. I remembered it immediately. I'm so proud of myself. I go to countries where they tell me their name 5 times, and I go, "Good to meet you, sir," because I just can't get it. Yes.
Relate to the natural pitch person? Like if somebody has a lower or higher pitch, it's easier to work on their resonance.
Right, but the point is variation. So if you have if you more high pitch, you want to develop the low. If you're more tuned to the low, you want to develop the high. You want the full 88 keys on that keyboard. So what I was saying to Sigal and Sigalit, and I don't know if you're interested, I did something like this for the Young Presidents Organization. I did an online course in public speaking mastery, where for 10 weeks we covered a different subject. We looked at different speeches, different homework assignment, do videotapes on your cell phone, you send them in, you get evaluated. So if that's of interest, I would be very happy to do that as an exclusive thing for the Tel Aviv University alumni. If you want to go deeper, it's genuinely frustrating for me because I could spend an office all day just covering this, right? And we're already probably running behind, so I'm going to move fast. But I'm here for you, either here or in Los Angeles, if you want. Okay, so that's so body language, really quick. Important to understand the body never, ever, ever, ever lies in its initial reaction, right? Because the initial body reaction to anything is going to be coming from the subconscious part of the brain. Some people are very good at quickly overriding that, right, to manipulate their body language. But for example, there was a great moment of body language when Mr. Trump and his wife were here, right? It's like, right? How many of you saw that? That's pretty unmistakable. I mean, you can try to spin that all day long, just like people tried to spin when he pushed away did you see that when he was in Europe? I'm sorry, it is what it is, right? I mean, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And that body language speaks for itself, because the body, 55 or so % is communicating things. So it never lies, it always speaks first. So, hey, I've got the really important thing I need to be done by the close of business on Tuesday. Can you do it? Sure. What's the real answer? The answer is no. The answer is I'm not sure. Okay? So, quickly, posture. Okay, standing up tall. Donald Trump has actually pretty good posture. He did when he was a candidate. He seems to have gained a little weight. Not playing enough golf, I guess. Eye contact, the most important thing about body language. So when I started teaching public speaking, the normal way to teach public speaking was to look over the heads of the audience and imagine, you've heard this, yes? And imagine that the people in the audience are what? That they're naked. Now, unless you're in a particularly interesting audience, that's going to be a problem, right? But the bigger point is you're dehumanizing, you're diminishing, you're discounting, you're making less than the people that are the most important people in the room. I am here not for myself, and by the way, I'm not even getting paid. I'm here because I'm excited about sharing something with you that hopefully will help you. So if I'm here to help you, why would I want to imagine you in your underwear or naked or sitting on a toilet or whatever it is, right? I would want to say, here, let me share this with you. My definition of public speaking, of great public speaking, is 3 things, which is very disruptive. So the old definition, and this is what I talked about in my TED Talk, the old definition is you're giving some sort of a performance. It's a speech, it's a performance. And I say, no. Public speaking is nothing more than having a conversation, and that's where you have the eye contact, because you tend to look when you have a conversation, from your heart about something that you were authentically passionate about. And that can be a problem with people in business. Well, I'm not passionate about this. I said, then don't talk about it. Or find a way to be passionate about it. That's the art and the science of being a great speaker. It has to have some level of authentic passion. That's what Bernie Sanders was all about. And that's why young people say, oh, Bernie, this old Jewish socialist, right? Who never in a million years would be considered a political candidate, but he brought authenticity into politics, which people crave. Every speaker needs to be authentic in everything they say, in every emotion. So, I'm sorry? Bernie Sanders would have destroyed Trump by at least 5 to 10 points. Yes. That's, again, we'll never know. We'll never know, but a lot of people agree with that. And Bernie Sanders might even run again. I think he might run in 2020. Yeah, it's fascinating. It's, huh? I'll tell him you said so. He's doing pretty good. He's an Ashkenazi Jew, you know. Look at Norman Lear. He's 95. He's still going. Okay. So, thank you. So, public speaking is nothing more than having a conversation from where? From your heart. About what? About something that you are authentically passionate about. And then the third thing is, why are you giving this speech? In order to help someone, to help a group of people or to help the whole world. When Leo DiCaprio gets up at the Golden Globes and he talks about climate change, he's doing it because he authentically, genuinely, passionately feels that that information will help the world. Okay, whether you agree or not. So that's the three definitions. Okay, gestures down, power and authority. Don't. Gestures to the side communicate you're off balance. This is really important, especially if you're, this is really important. There was a Mayor Dick Reardon of Los Angeles would actually talk like this. His own people called him Mr. Magoo. So when he was running for governor, I tried to tighten up his body language. So the difference, this education is the most important. Education is the most important thing in this state. Is there a difference? Right? Again, not changing the words, just changing the gestures, the movement, everything. And movement. So if I stood behind this podium for the entire time, would it have the same impact as me walking around? Because I'm trying to create a what? A conversation, not a speech. Okay, sometimes you have to be behind a podium, but even in those cases, there's ways to do it. Okay, number 4, so how much time do we have? That's not, no, I want to respect people's schedules. 10 minutes, okay. So laser compelling message. Donald Trump had a master class on this. We talked about it. What were Donald Trump's messages, right? Build a wall, keep Muslims out, make America great. Okay, what was Hillary's laser compelling message? I don't know. It's amazing. So many smart people in the Democratic Party, and they couldn't figure this out. Okay? So this is incredibly important for branding your company, your project, your whatever, is what is that laser compelling message? What's the one thing? What's the provocative headline about what you're doing, what your company is all about, that's going to get people to ask the question, what? Tell me more. Okay? So this is how you write a speech. If we do a workshop or something, we go through, and I actually do have people write speeches in 45 seconds by following this formula. Okay? Okay, marketing using the laser compelling. I'm sorry? Yeah, I can send the PowerPoint to you guys if you'd like. You'd like that? Okay, great. Happy Hanukkah. Okay. So marketing, 2 things to create a message for your brand, for your company, for yourself. What is unique about you, and how does that uniqueness benefit the audience that you're talking to? Okay. Secret number 5, we talked about this. The way public speaking used to be taught is a performance at. When you are giving a performance, you are being a what? Think of Hollywood. You're being an actor. And if you're an actor, you're 100% not yourself. You're not authentically yourself, right? So a lot of politicians fall over there. Presentation, that's where most business people fall. It's all about the data. I'm just going to download data. Here's the quarterly returns, here's the data, here's the metrics, here's the this. And you feel like you've done your job, but you have not. Because your job when you give a speech or you make a presentation in a boardroom or any other place is to bring yourself into that. It's that combination of the information and your perspective. It's not just the data. Now, right, didn't used to be, most of us are old enough to remember when we didn't have the internet, but now if it's all about data, put together a PowerPoint, hit send, and then go play golf, right? But the reason you are in that boardroom is to bring your personality, your unique snowflake DNA personality, never again to exist in the history of the universe. Every single human being is completely unique, an unrepeatable experience in the history of the universe. That's who you are. And that's what you bring into every speech that you give. That's what Dr. Martin Luther King did flawlessly. That's why we celebrate him. That's what people like Yitzhak Rabin and other leaders do that have an impact in the world. Okay? And where the Martin Luther King, the John F. Kennedy, and the Ronald Reagans, and to a very large extent Donald Trump, where they do well is by having a conversation with. I mentioned it. We're going to build a wall, yay! And who's going to pay for it? Mexico. It's a conversation. But even if you're not asking questions, it's a conversational tone. Trump got up there and talked for 30, 40, 45, 60 minutes with no notes, just having a conversation. The quality of the content, in my mind, was pathetic. Okay? Not to mention completely not accurate, right? But it didn't matter. It didn't matter, as we saw. And again, I just want to remind you, Donald Trump lost by 10.6 million votes. 10.6 million people voted for Hillary or Gary Johnson or Gil Stein more than Donald Trump. But because of our crazy electoral college system, he's in there. Yeah.
All the example the debate, that is Hillary won the debate.
Yeah, look how much it mattered.
So his conversation was better and his presentation was better.
When he would do, so there were 3 debates, 90 minutes each, right? So that's 4.5 hours compared to 18 months, right? But even, again, when you win, most people who analyze these things are looking at the, right? He won with the content. I'm looking at the nonverbals, right?
Even in the non-verbal, I was studying in a course named Becoming a Politician. And I was told by Steve Jobs that to be angry and to be rude is not something that a politician needs to do if you want to be elected.
Right. Right. So 2 things. First of all, people who believed in Donald Trump were so desperate for something that was disruptive that they didn't care about the traditional things, right? They were just happy. And they gave him every opportunity to make mistakes because they believed in who he was and that he was going to be this hammer, this bludgeon to politics. So his margin of error was massive. Hillary's margin of error as an establishment politician was like this. But to the point of your professor, I say anger can be, in general, you want optimism, right? Ronald Reagan, John F. Kennedy, we're going to go to the moon, we're going to work together with the world, Barack Obama, hope and change. You want optimism in general, but and this is a message that people don't understand, far more important than optimism is authenticity. Now, if you can have both, then it's an incredible combination, right? So if someone is angry, I want them, when I'm coaching them, I want them to be angry. Let's talk strategically about maybe how to moderate that anger, but I don't want you to shut it down, right? And if someone wants to cry, right? Hillary, the most powerful moment she ever had as a communicator was after, right before the New Hampshire primary in 2008, she literally cried. She goes, I love this country so much. And people say, oh, it's BS. And I said, no, you watch the body language. It was real. And if that Hillary had shown up at all in this campaign, she'd be in the White House. A little too late. Just like Al Gore did. I know, it was all that. I know, I can't even go there anymore. Okay. It's just, I've been angsting about this for so long. Okay, so secret number 6, real quick, 4 languages of communication. If you speak one of them, you're horrible. 2 of them is average. 3 of them is excellent. 4 of them is Bill Clinton, Martin Luther King, Oprah Winfrey. It's extraordinary. So here are the 4 languages based on neuro-linguistic programming. The visual part of the brain, fast, high energy, excitement, creativity, right? That's people who say, hey, how you doing? It's good to what? See you. That's the part of your brain where you see things. Good to see you. And it operates like the speed of light, very fast. So think of Robin Williams. He's the ideal example of that. God bless his soul, right? Pictures, movies were streaming into his head so fast, he could hardly keep up with them. That's a true visual communicator, okay? But also, people have vision, that's important. Then the question is, can you communicate what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what you're thinking in a way that people are going to be interested, right? Bill Clinton, incredibly good at that. Ronald Reagan, incredibly good at that. Just the ability to be articulate, and because how things sound, both in terms of words and voice tone, are important. People are auditory. Visual people care about how things what? Look, a visual person is going to buy a car because what? It looks good. And more importantly, they look good in it. A visual person is going to spend much more money on clothes and on just, grooming and all of that because they care about how things look. Auditory person is very careful about how they sound and how effective they are at communicating things. But an auditory digital person, that's Albert Einstein. That's Stephen Hawking. That's most college professors, or many college professors, or lawyer professors of anything, right? It's all about being analytical and detailed. That is the language that Donald Trump did not have, right? I'm going to build a wall. Well, how are you going to do it? Mexico's going to pay for it. How's that going to happen, right? Now, if Donald Trump, as I mentioned in my article in the HuffPost, if he had said, and Mexico's going to pay for it, and you may laugh at that, but there have been 4 cases in history in the last 2,000 years where enemies have been forced to, through negotiation in very specific ways, to actually fund the building of border walls between themselves and their neighbors. It happened in 2000 BC or whatever between the, wow, give me some substance, give me some data, right? When Sarah Palin, remember Sarah Palin? Sorry to always talk about American politicians, but they're so bizarre, right? I know yours are too, but I don't know them well enough. But Sarah Palin lost the presidency for John McCain when Katie Couric asked this horribly difficult question. It said, what do you read? Governor Palin, what do you read? Thinking, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Jerusalem Post, whatever, right? And she said, well, I read everything. No, Governor, what do you read? Well, everything. And oh my God, the woman doesn't read. No, seriously. So what that translated into, oh my God, she doesn't have auditory digital, right? Now, sometimes Barack Obama had too much, and he sounded too much like a college, law professor, which I loved, but again, Bill Clinton's speechwriter told me that Bill Clinton told his speechwriting team to dumb it down. He said, I don't want to do oratory, which I think is a shame because I love oratory. I just want every single person to understand what I'm saying, okay? Not everyone understood Hillary. They understood Donald Trump. And the kinesthetic, that's Morgan Freeman. That's James Earl Jones. That's Barry White. Oh, baby. It's the smelling, touching, tasting, feeling part where you just want to go up and hug someone. How many people wanted to hug Hillary Clinton? Okay. Well, huh? This guy's... You want to say it a little louder? He said, not even Bill. Okay. That's between them. I enjoy that more than the audience did. So. Anyway, but there's two kinds of kinesthetic. Donald Trump doesn't even have a dog, right? There was somebody who said, you know what, that would fix him. He just needs a dog. He needs to have to care for somebody, care for something. And a dog would be a good training tool for him, right? Think about it. He'll be the first U.S. president not to have a dog, right? So he doesn't have that soft, touchy-feely kinesthetic, but he has that, we're going to get them, we're going to kick China's butt, and we're going to stand up to NATO, and right, all of that. That's a different kind, that's a football player kind of kinesthetic, and he has that. Okay, so that's that, and it's all like 88 keys on a keyboard. There's 14 different combinations of these 4 languages. I had one of the thrills of my life to be invited to lunch, a private lunch with Princess Diana in 1996 in Kensington Palace. And right at the same time that Yitzhak Rabin's wife, what's her name? She was also in London at the same time. And I spent a couple hours talking to Diana about overcoming her fear of public speaking. And what I learned is that Diana still can't believe she's gone, was a 2-language communicator. And Charles is also a 2-language communicator, but 2 completely different languages, right? So Diana was number 3 under 2-language humans. She was visual kinesthetic. So she cared a lot about how she looked. She was very, high energy and big picture and wants to save the world and the children and all of that. And she was very touchy-feely, very emotional, very vulnerable. Yes? She was not very articulate and she was not very academic, right? She didn't have those middle languages, right? Her favorite country was what? People's favorite places to go will mirror the languages that they speak neurologically. So what country is visual, lots of things to see, lots of energy, lots of excitement, and lots of great food, lots of great art, lots of great opera? Italy, right? She loved Italy because it was the opposite of England, right? So Italy is a visual kinesthetic country. Charles is auditory digital, that's number 4. Iceland is so beautiful, though. You have to go. But also this country called the United Kingdom, right? So Charles would be talking about the history of the British Empire, and Diana would be talking about feelings and fashion and all that. And they had no connection. What's going on in your marriages? Anyway, just saying. But a lot of human connection issues have to do with literally speaking different neurological brain languages or communication languages. Okay, ending. This is the bottom line of everything. You can forget everything that I said. I hope you don't, but you could. And if you just committed every single time you got up to focus on, you know what, I've got something that I want to share that can help people. So this product, this service, this investment, this idea, this whatever, actually, I genuinely, authentically believe that it will what? It will help the people that are in the audience. Otherwise, I wouldn't be out here. And if you come from that place, and it's all about giving rather than, how do I look? I hope they don't judge me badly, right? You will overcome whatever level of fear you have, and you will be doing the thing that all great speakers do, which is having a what? Conversation from the what? Heart about what? Something that you are passionate about in order to help others. But it's all, this is the fuel. This is the driving force. And so Israel is such an extraordinary country filled with so many amazing people. And the whole world, if they only knew the story of what goes on in this country, would be in awe of what goes on here and would try to replicate it and embrace our people and our country in ways that we haven't yet achieved. It's an honor to be here and hopefully to have helped in making that happen. Thank you very much.
The master of charisma, you know. And now, we have something small. It's a peanut that we've been University. So now you're officially a TAU friend. So
Thank you so much.
And we want to try the things that you invited us to do. So we will send all of you the presentation of Mr. Richard Greene, and we will ask you if you want this online course, and we hope that you want, and we will do it together. So this is one thing. And now for the big moment, I will Sigalit.
We'll discover, we will have this private meeting with Richard Greene. And the winner, Stern, Asgard.
No way. I think Vladimir Putin was involved. It's a pleasure. I can't wait to hear more of your comments. Yes. So let's start right now in 2 seconds. So what is it that you are most passionate about to share with this audience?
Oh, I haven't thought about it.
Oh, no, but it's not about thinking. It's about what do you care most about? If you could make one difference in Israel or in the world, what would it be? Just any difference.
I want people to believe what really goes on here in our country. A true story which nobody told until today.
Okay, you want to give us just one paragraph on that? Okay, we'll work on that later. Let's give him a big hand. So I would say that just my initial thing, he's got a great voice, right? Okay, deep, it's very resonant, but here's the issue. Remember the voice, it's all about variation. So if he only stays in those lower realms, those lower notes in the piano, it's going to literally create a hypnotic effect because of lack of variation. So we're going to work a little bit on getting some of those upper frequencies as well. Let's give him another hand.